Right.
All
It's
right.
11:04 or 4:04 p.m. for those of you in UK. So just wanted to say welcome everyone. Very quick question before we dive in. How many of you have felt like your ABM efforts are hitting a wall? You're investing heavily in account targeting, but the results aren't matching the effort? You're not alone. Here's what we're seeing across the industry. Traditional ABM approaches that worked 2, 3 years ago are now delivering diminishing returns. Why? Because buying committees have grown larger, decision making cycles are longer, and prospects expect hyper personalized experiences at every touch point. But here's the exciting part. The companies that are cracking this code aren't just tweaking their existing ABM playbooks. They're fundamentally reimagining how they engage accounts using AI-powered experiences. And the results, we're seeing 40% more pipeline, higher engagement rates, and significantly shorter sales cycle. Now that we have a flavor of what we'll be discussing today, just a quick intro to your hosts, and then I will take you through the agenda for today. So my name is Catalina Dobre. For those of you that know me, everybody calls me Kat. I've been with Market One for over 6 years now, and I wear a bit of a dual role. I'm heading up the client services team globally and also the production team. And lately, I've started getting more and more involved in partnerships because obviously we have invested a lot in that in the past 12 to 18 months. Passing over to my colleague Mike. And I'm based in London. So over to Mike on the other side of the pond.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. Based here in Boston, I'm a go-to-market and revenue growth leader for Market One. I lead sales and marketing in North America. So my job is really to practice what we preach, ultimately, is to lead our own go-to-market efforts and try to be the best case study of ourselves. Spent some time at Salesforce, sold Marketing Cloud, Data Cloud, helped with optimizing marketing operations for a large number of enterprises. And so I get really excited about companies redefining how they go to market and applying new tools like AI to really take it to the next level. Thanks, Kat.
Perfect. So what we will cover today, Mike and I are going to take you behind the scenes of the transformation from ABM to ABX. Here's what you'll walk away with today. First, we're going to share what we're seeing, the real data on why traditional ABM is struggling and what's changing in the buyer behavior that's driving this shift. Then we're going to explore keeping up with the ABM evolution, the three critical gaps that we have identified in most ABM programs that are killing pipeline conversion. We'll dive deep into AI-powered account experiences. This isn't just chatbots and email personalization. We're talking about intelligent orchestration across every touch point, and you'll see why that's important. And then we'll show you the results. Real case studies from companies achieving that 40% pipeline increase, including the specific metrics that matter. We will paint a picture of what good looks like so you can benchmark your current efforts and identify your biggest opportunities. And finally, we will give you a practical roadmap, the exact steps to get started, even if you're working with limited resources, as loads of us are. All right, let's dive in. So Mike is going to share what we're hearing and seeing from B2B marketing leaders like yourselves.
Thanks, Kat. So I don't think it's any surprise when you see this slide. You've heard this before. The funnel's dead. The funnel's gone. The funnel traditionally, the traditional B2B funnel is dead. Not completely. What this means is we need to rethink how buyers expect to be engaged in the B2B setting. They expect to be engaged just like we do in our personal lives. 80% of them expect real-time responses, but about 70% of them, another stat here, 80% of them have already made a buying decision before they reach out, and Sixth Sense confirms that. Buyers don't engage until they're about 70% of the way through their journey. So to me, what this says is buyers, you're on their terms, but you better be ready when they are to respond in real time with something relevant. And generating demand is harder than ever for B2B marketers. 5% of B2B buyers are in market at any given time. Only 15 to 20% more are actually even receptive to hearing about something new. The other thing that I take away from this is that cold calls the traditional approach of sales development and SDRs is not working and hasn't for quite some time. About 4.5%, 4.8% of the time, a call actually converts to a positive outcome, to a meeting. It's harder than ever. And I think the other thing to take away here is ABM as a concept isn't dead. It's just evolved. The best practices that made ABM successful are still foundational to getting ABX and buyer group engagement right. It's that the expectation has changed on the buyer side and that the definition of what's working needs to evolve. And so let's take a look at account-based marketing. Account-based marketing really was focused on awareness, on email-based campaigns largely. There was some intent usage to help maybe prioritize an account list, but not necessarily applied throughout the entire sales funnel. It was oftentimes a few channels, maybe an ad or an email campaign, but often not orchestrated together. And there wasn't as much personalization as we're seeing in today's world. 70% of B2B marketers have an active ABM program today. Now we're kind of in this world of account-based experiences where we've gone beyond ABM to include sales. Now sales and marketing are at the table. They're jointly defining an audience. There's a top and maybe middle funnel focus for ABM. There is some built-in intent in those programs. There's some AI usage, but not very mature. And there's account level insights, but there's not necessarily buying group level insights that enable your folks in front of the buyer to say the right thing at the right time. And the growth of the ABX industry over the next 5 years is growing. It's a 20% growth rate that we're seeing this industry and the platforms that support it continue to grow. Where we're going next, where we're seeing our clients go next, is really being able to use signals at the buying group level and be able to orchestrate those different buying groups, potentially even across many accounts. It's full funnel, right? It's not just the top and the middle, but it's helping to actually make sellers more intelligent at the bottom of the funnel and in terms of upsell, cross-sell, or relationship management. We're seeing it actually help to synchronize the different channels that you're already using for account-based marketing and experiences. It has more prescriptive AI actions, really important. The AI is helping the seller or the AI agent be more effective than the traditional approaches. And there's built-in intelligence about the buying group themselves and how to engage with them in a relevant way. But here's the good news. There is amazing potential and a high ceiling in this space. Only 24% of B2B marketers are actually using AI for ABM to target and prioritize their accounts. And Kat's going to talk a little bit about some of these challenges in a minute, but that's a big problem. You know, if only 24% of marketers are using this amazing, powerful technology to get the lists right, we're already starting potentially with the wrong targets, or maybe not discovering the ones that could lead to better conversion. So Kat, what are our clients dealing with? You know, what's holding them back from getting from account-based marketing to experiences to buying group engagement using AI?
Sure. So let's discuss data, right? Everybody loves data. The problem isn't lack of information, is that all your valuable data lives in separate worlds that never talk to each other. So let's have a look at the data silos. Your CRM knows when someone downloads a white paper, but it doesn't know when they spent 15 minutes on your pricing page yesterday. That's a problem. Marketing automation sees an email open, but misses that the same person just had a support ticket resolved. That's another problem. So each platform is telling part of the story, but nobody sees the complete customer journey. Then let's talk about the fragmented first-party signals. Think about this. A prospect visits your website, engages with your emails, uses your product trial, and contacts support. That's 4 different touch points with 4 separate scores or statuses, which again is a challenge. So without connecting these signals, you might nurture someone who's already ready to buy, or even worse, ignore someone who's showing clear buying intent. And then we're talking about ignored third-party intelligence. You're paying for intent data, as I'm sure everyone, if not most of you do, competitive intelligence and technographic insights, but are sitting unused because they can't integrate with your existing workflows. So, as you can see on the screen, according to Gartner, 87% of organizations struggle with the exact same problem. And the result, missed opportunities, wasted budget, and frustrated prospects who feel like you don't understand their needs.
So true. I mean, you think about it this way, right? Great. We all have so many great go-to-market ideas. We can't get those ideas in the market. Execution is the enemy of these great ideas, and data is at the heart of those challenges in execution. So, move faster and turn those great go-to-market ideas into execution and results, this is something that
Exactly.
marketers need to get right.
Definitely. And continuing with our challenges, um, Mike, I bet you've experienced this. You get an email from a company about their basic package, and then the same day their sales rep calls to discuss enterprise solutions. How do you feel about it?
It happens almost every day. It could be that I get the wrong follow-up. I get something that has nothing to do with market one. They're using the wrong intent. I think that's the really funny one where I know you're in the market for and has nothing to do with what we are actually looking at or our business. At the end of the day, helpful but out of context isn't very useful to the buyer, and it creates a moment of confusion. Now, to
Yes.
us, confusion is the enemy of conversion. If your buyer is experiencing random acts of sales and marketing because you have an ABM approach, but it's not executed consistently, or the signals are changing and you're not set up to react in real time, one moment of confusion can blow up millions of dollars of great execution. You could get everything right on the ad side, on the marketing side, on the creative side, a landing page, and sales doesn't follow up with the right messaging. They actually cherry pick and say something different. That right there creates confusion, and I'm actually gonna abandon. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go somewhere else or do that next task on my list. I might not get that experience again with your brand. So you got buyers that are out there that are potentially being alienated by what we may perceive are the right things to do today. And until you work as a combined team, you can't really hit those opportunities squarely.
Exactly. And that's the reason why the buyer's journey isn't linear, but your response to them should be coherent. And that's where the AI powered orchestration comes in.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then let's talk nurtures, right? I'm sure everybody has nurtures out there. They have been created perhaps quite a few months, years ago. But basically, the main point here is that today's buyers expect personalized, relevant experiences that adapt to their specific situation, role, and buying stage in real time. The static sequences that are part of the traditional nurture assume that every single prospect follows the same journey at the same pace, which can be further than the truth. So your nurture needs to keep up with their reality, not force them into a timeline that has been established previously. So the AI-driven nurture, right, is based on real-time adaptation triggered by behavior, engagement, and profile data. And it's orchestrated experiences, again, as you can see on the screen, that coordinate across email, social, website, and sales outreach. So it's all in one, bringing it together.
Absolutely.
And
This
again,
also reduces.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Kat. I was just going to ask, like your teams are in the production process of so many of our clients, and we're doing a lot of these
exactly.
traditional nurtures, right? So think about how many, you want to do one dynamic email to a segment that has 15 or 20 different signal-based subsegments. We're now creating 15 times however many emails, or we're creating very smart templates to dynamically change, but we're still setting that up. We're not letting the buyer drive the logic in those nurtures. And that's where we're seeing our top clients go.
Exactly. And
So how
that's
do you,
basically that's how you drive more pipeline, right? Just making sure that you create experiences that prospects actually value.
yeah,
So now that we have identified these three critical challenges that we discussed, let's talk about how AI-powered account experiences solve each of them. So, Mike, over to
great.
you.
I'm going to talk about something that we call ABX as a service and really think about this as always on account-based and buyer-based experiences. It's using those signals in a more intelligent way, being able to apply them with the right context in the right moment, and then be able to take that conversation and extend it into multiple channels. What it always starts with is very precise advertising. So many marketers waste up to 20 to 30% of their budget by targeting those people who are outside of that 5% or 15 to 20%. So by flipping the funnel, we actually recommend our clients are monitoring the right topics, but using those topics to identify surging accounts and using those signals in real time to be very hyper targeted, micro targeted at sub segments within that audience, spending only media on the areas that actually are tied to high impact areas or tied to micro audiences that are modeling likelihood to engage or potential to engage with the brand. There's a number of different platforms we use in our offering to make this easy for clients. We bring together intent from 6sense, intent from Bombora, signals from ZoomInfo, new job alerts and job changes from LinkedIn, because not all intent is created equal. And we need to model that against your data in order to be very precise on who we target. But we need to drive them to something that's hyper contextual. It's one thing to get an ad. We've all done this, clicked to an experience that has nothing to do with the dialogue. The destination does not match the dialogue. And so when you get to that destination, that content should be relevant real time and using all of that intelligence. So if I know that this buyer is in a certain stage, has certain signals, and has been down the aisle with us 5 times, I might actually change the content or do something different or ask my bot to say something slightly different to this buyer or this buying group within the same account. And we use technologies like Path Factory, Drift, Qualified, and others to really help make that content hub experience hyper personalized, not just to the account, but potentially the account segment, the buying group, or the signal that that person is exhibiting. We're always learning, we're always refining. And so the other aspect of ABX as a service is autonomous buyer engagement. You can't have SDRs monitoring buyer signals at all times. Maybe for the top accounts, we want to plug in human SDRs to be in real time monitoring and engaging with certain personas. But that's going to leave a lot of buyers on the table. This is where we actually have a Market One AI assistant. It's monitoring those inbound traffic signals. It's monitoring intent from all these different sources. It's proactively engaging the buyer with relevant information or not, based on the rules that we define and the logic that the AI engine learns. And it's then injecting those conversations, leads, and those additional signals into your other downstream platforms like sales engagement platforms like SalesLoft, or our SD360 offering for our human SDRs to also be plugged into that buyer experience, or Salesforce directly. But this is allowing you to have autonomous buyer engagement using those signals in real time to improve relevance anytime they're on your owned properties. And then it's about applying the human touch, like I mentioned, when it matters to the right buyers, to the right audiences. And so aligning BDR and ADR qualification into the process with the right intelligence, the right view, the right history, and using AI to prescribe maybe a message or a point of view that they should share with that buyer when they pick up the phone. And so Market One, as an agency, we've developed this as a service for clients because they might not have all of the technology at the bottom of this slide. We have made it easy to embed those in our offerings, but also we know how this should look and feel for our clients. So many of you all have these technologies and they're not connected properly, and we can't really deliver this experience. One client that got that right, and we want to highlight as an example of what good looks like, is Samsung. Samsung, is a manufacturer of hardware and software, a lot of consumer devices. But one of the biggest parts of their business is actually business devices. So selling tablets and hardware devices to publishers, to media companies, to sports teams. And so their challenge was they had a very, very defined universe. They needed to get into these 10 accounts, and they needed to have success in at least 5 of them to have success in this vertical, in this industry. And there were 10 accounts that were identified as true ABM one-to-one. Then there was about 107 that we identified as one to few, that we also identified as high intent, high potential. This all started with data workshops, data alignment, sales alignment, and hyper-targeted planning on what we're going to say to each of the segments of our accounts. And within the one-to-one segment, what specifically are we going to say to this account? That data was captured, it was organized, it was built into a segment data model that we built and delivered with the client to power the program. The program then delivered very hyper-personalized targeted advertisement. You can see some of the examples of those ads here on the right that were targeted to very specific audiences, buyers, and accounts. And those campaigns, we call them digital air cover. So digital air cover and targeted account-based advertising and content syndication drove these buyers to a very, very targeted content hub. We call it kind of a content hub microsite experience. That experience was being monitored in real time, and all of those buyer signals were being fed to our SDR teams who were actually qualifying not just leads, but behavior. And they were almost seen as a steward of an experience with Samsung, welcoming them, thanking them, shepherding them to the next step in their journey. And what that does is it gives a buyer experience that isn't just about transaction, it's about education and relationship. They delivered 7 out of 10 accounts as sales ready leads, 70% lead rate. They increased their ad conversion by 300%, which is insane. Just to be able to reach that many more people and have that many more buyers engage just by being more personal and flipping the funnel around. And I think they sold 15,000 tablets in one deal just based on being that hyper personalized and being relevant to the challenges that this particular account is facing. In this particular case, we also identified a whole bunch of new buyers that they didn't know. And this account is still, this campaign is still providing return. You're still nurturing these buyers over the years. And so this not only drove immediate pipeline impact, increased conversion and experience, conversion from ad experiences, but it also delivered real revenue in a very short amount of time. I want to go beyond this though. It's nice to show you a case study. It's nice to show you examples of creatives. This is the single reason why this account and this campaign was so successful is they got this step of the methodology right. I'm going to go into this methodology and talk specifically about the steps that we took with this client and their sales team to get to those sorts of results. But Kat, this might look familiar to some of the clients that you have on the call or some of our customers in terms of our prior ABX methodology.
Yes, definitely. So it might be very familiar to some of you on the call. We have developed the 7-step ABM framework that we have launched couple of years back. However, what Mike now has on the screen is a deeper dive into the area that we continue to see marketers needing to improve. So we want to give you some of the best practices on today's call, tied to Samsung, but also acknowledging that this might look very familiar to some of you.
Absolutely. So what's not on the screen is the data work that we did to show up to this workshop. So we took their data, and we'll show you a real life example of what this looks like in a minute, but we identified their segments and we modeled them against our customer journey model, which is a segment model that we've defined. It's got 13 segments that we see as high value that we can identify in a client's data model. That was used to suggest ideas that were brought to this workshop in these sets of meetings that you're seeing on screen. So before marketing and sales got in the room together, we already had an idea of what data was available to support ABM and ABX campaigns. That led to number one. Number one was meeting with sales and marketing and go-to-market leadership and actually going through a workshop on how are we going to, where within this data do we want to actually focus our time and effort? What is the objective? What do we want to focus on from a reputation perspective? Is it awareness and reputation building? Is it improving relationships? Is it getting new relationships? Is it growth out of this campaign? What we determined with this client was it was very much about getting into new accounts and driving new revenue, not as much and leveraging the relationships that they had and the reputation they have, but focusing on the unique needs of that prospect, which led to the second, which is who what are the stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders? What is our relationship mapping to those stakeholders? Do we have intelligence on who the influencers are? Do we have a map of the account? Do we have the right contacts in our database? So there was an effort to go discover those right contacts and tie them to very specific personas and very specific buyer groups. So we had that mapping early. That allowed us to then map out a value story, not just the not the journey, but the value story. What are the key points? What are the pain points? What are the problems that we want to highlight we can solve for this account versus this account versus the one-to-many segment? Because remember, they had 10 key accounts and they had another segment that was going to be a little bit more persona based, not issue or priority based. The top accounts, they wanted to use all of those key data points to get really hyper targeted on what they said to each of them. And so that value story then led to stakeholder scoring. Who really should we be targeting at this account based on the value story? And then how? Who, where and how should we reach them? What's their journey? What does the journey look like? How are we going to engage this audience relevantly? So we mapped that out with sales so that they knew when their job, what their job was at what point in the journey. They knew that this campaign wouldn't work if they weren't picking up the phone at this stage and following the process. And they agreed to it. We aligned with marketing and sales on how, not just how marketing should act, but how sales should function, how SDR should function. In this case, we were the SDR team doing that follow-up, so how we should function. We got all of that on paper mapped out. We defined KPIs against each segment and against each tactic. So not just the channel tactic, but the segment. What do we want out of this segment by channel? And then out of that, we prioritized and said the most opportune, given all of this information, is to activate here and here and here. So the strategy was very well defined with the sales and marketing leadership team. The content strategy was effectively taking this data and creating assets and then executing, because all that planning work, all that intelligence had been captured upfront. And in this process, we were the facilitators. We were ultimately the executors of this campaign. But this takes alignment. This takes, you and your sales counterpart or your marketing counterpart identifying that there could be so much more in terms of return and result, but it takes us working differently. And let's look at the way we work today versus maybe the way we could work in the future.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy to to get there, but it's so worth it, right? I mean, look at the results.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
amazing
AI
what
can help us. There's no
the
silver bullet, though, is kind of my message, right? AI is going to help you in the account stakeholder ecosystem, relationship intelligence, AI relationship mapping. We have a prospect actually that does that for clients. They do relationship intelligence, right? So use that. Another would be you can use AI to score stakeholders. You can use AI to ideate on pain points or priorities, or give me 4 jobs to be done for persona A. Of course, we're using AI in this process, but there's no silver bullet for this. AI is not going to do this for you. It could help. And I think that's one of the mistakes we see is, well, AI is going to tell us who to target. It will if you have the right strategy and you feed AI that strategy. This is a methodology to get to that strategy.
Yeah, it's basically AI is not in the driver's seat, right? AI can be your most trusted co-pilot, but again, it's more helping you as opposed to driving everything.
And there are places where you do want to let that AI maybe drive some of the way, but with guardrails and with guardrails that plug into the rest of the strategy. Because I don't know about you all, but I can sniff out an AI email. I got a really good one yesterday on LinkedIn. It was hyper personal and I actually had no idea it was a bot. But because it was so good, I asked. And they said, yeah, this is a bot. So I think we're getting better at searching this stuff out. And I think human and bot together, that's going to be what gives you the best human experience for account-based marketing experiences. It's hard to do, but it starts with this methodology, and it also requires technology and data coming together. Having experts that can help you get that right is really important. But one of the things that I see a lot is, okay, fine, you've been talking for 30 minutes about how cool this is and why it's better. I don't know what good looks like. I've seen demos from Salesforce that are all about Salesforce. I've seen Zoom Info demos that are all about Zoom Info. I've seen demos from Marketo or Drift or Qualified that are about their technology. The number one issue in making this real is having those systems work together. It's defining a use case and a strategy like you're seeing on screen. Back to that ideas and execution, right? We can't execute these great ideas. The other culprit is that their systems aren't talking. They're siloed. Those random access sales and marketing is because they're not necessarily integrating their systems. I call it the post-digital transformation era. You've all bought the tech. Now let's make it work. You've got the tech. Let's make what you have work and integrate it more effectively. So let's bring this to life. Let's show you what good looks like. Let's show you how we work with our clients across all these technologies. And remember, as you see the technologies on screen, all of these can be interchangeable. Yes, there are differences in pros and cons, but if you have a different CDP than what we show, or you have a different sales engagement platform or a different ABM tool, that's okay. It's the strategy across all of them that we want to bring to life for you. So we're going to imagine a world where we don't have silos. We don't have platforms that are built for stages of the life cycle. We have an ecosystem. We have an ecosystem built around a hub of intelligence that we're using to engage our buyers. We're capturing signals in from journeys, from content, from channels, from analytics platforms, from signals from third-party tools or your CRM, and we're using that to be relevant out in a chat, in an email, on the website, on a call, in your paid media. And let's focus on that unaware segment, right? So if we're going to say let's use this AI hub to focus on the unaware, unknown segment of our market. We're going to start by targeting very specific buying groups, and we're going to want to bring data together to understand what opportunities we have, just like I shared in the Samsung example. This is an example of our customer journey orchestration framework. There are 13 pre-built precast segments that we know how to engage with very specific kinds of programs, what we call demand program types. And we can very easily prescribe demand program types, but we have to start with the data and the segmentation. So in this case, we're bringing together intent and account intelligence from 6sense, Zoom Info at the buyer and contact level, and Salesforce on the first party data level, right? And we're bringing that together into a customer journey orchestration framework. And we're using that framework to actually start to ask the data questions, because at the top of the segmentation stack, it looks like we're going to focus on never engaged known accounts. Okay, that's a list. Known prospects engaging, that's a list. And there's anonymous prospects engaging. We can use tools to identify that list too in this construct. That's three audiences or three journey segments. Then there's a segmentation layer cake. I call it the layer cake of signals that needs to be built on top, right? Each of those boxes is going to have potentially 15 to 20 additional microsegments underneath it that are going to be based on the account segmentation that we came up with and the intent signal that we're receiving. And that might not just be buyer intent from 6sense. It could be a signal coming from their product data that is suggesting that there might be an upsell, cross-sell, or an attrition that they should be thinking about. In this particular segment, it's going to be things like an anonymous prospect engaging that has engaged with you 3-4 times before and also has intent and is in a different segment than what you put them in last time. And how do you identify that account and engage them relevantly? So we deploy this universal data model usually into a CDP to be able to give your other platforms context and intelligence against these segments. If you don't have a CDP, we have one for you. It's called CDP Lite. We work with our clients to deliver that all the time. And once we have that segmentation model, those high intent audiences are going to obviously go into activation to be targeted. But what's behind it? What's behind that audience activation? Well, we're bringing those audiences into unique profiles. We're constantly updating those audiences in their segments. We're using the AI intelligence to constantly analyze the many, many different kinds of intent signals. We're using the intelligence to decide which of them make sense given the stage of the account, the intent of the account, the potential of the account, the relationship with the account. AI is going to learn from all the other outreach, and it's going to refine the next best message. And it's going to deliver that message in the channel that needs it. So your other tools can become more intelligent. And this is using things like Sixth Sense for intent, Drift or Qualified as an AI chatbot to provide those real-time dynamic conversations with clients. It also feeds into your sales engagement tool. So if your audiences and signals on the website are changing, your SDRs need to be informed in real time what they did, what to say, why to say it, and be able to actually put them into different cadences based on what they learned. So being able to prescribe a script or intelligence to an SDR team, that is also something that we see is a critical piece of this workflow that not a lot of clients necessarily take all the way through. They're doing this on the content side, but they're not doing this on the sales engagement side. And that's the difference here. So let's take this foundation and let's bring it to life in an example. And we're going to use a Market One on Market One example, just because we're on a Market One webinar. So these high intent audiences, they're going to be targeted with precision advertising, as I mentioned earlier. Let's say somebody is searching for sales development at this account. We're going to be targeting a very hyper-personalized ad to that account and the segments within it, but it's going to be at the topic or interest level. It's going to be talking about a specific problem aligned to that segment and that signal. When they click through the ad, they're going to hit the buyer hub, the content hub. Notice it's very subtle, but the demand cycle on that screenshot is not our website. That's a microsite sitting next to it. That's our content hub, powered by AI, constantly being monitored by our AI SDR. And so they're going to receive a relevant landing experience based on the fact that they click through that ad because of that intent signal. But what else happens in the background with that signal? That signal is going to drive automated discovery using intelligence other places about that unknown account that now we've identified. Now we know that we need more buying group contacts at this account aligned to that signal and potentially some of the other signals that we know are next best for an account like this. So they're looking at sales development, but they might need help with data. And so we've got multiple buying groups that we want to pull into the account. This is an automated signal engagement. It exports those buyers directly into the platform that we're going to engage them in. This is an example of ZoomInfo, receiving that signal, finding the right buyer groups, and injecting them into your sales engagement platform for engagement. Not human engagement, but engagement. We'll get to that in a second. What happens if this client switches contacts? What happens if that client abandons the session? They're going to get re-engaged. They're going to get re-engaged using email. What if they search a different search term though? What if their buyer intent or signal switches? And this is a very basic example. Somebody expressly or explicitly saying, I'm looking for this. You can do the same thing with inferred interest from signals. I'm just giving you sort of a very easy example. Is they search something different. We now know, and we're going to change the experience they see when they hit the site next. We're also going to let the chatbot know to welcome them back and talk to them differently. Now talk to them about this new signal. Now welcome them and pick up the conversation instead of continuing to hit folks over the head with sales development, as an example.
And this is what Maya is great at, right?
This is Maya. Yeah. This is Maya, our new chatbot, and we're drinking our own champagne. We're using our partner Qualified's platform for that. We use SalesLoft, we use ZoomInfo, we use Sixth Sense. We are a Salesforce customer, so this kind of represents some of our tech stack, actually. We're partners with all of that.
You should go on our website and meet Maya.
Right, exactly. You could go meet Maya today, and I think one of those things that we're seeing is Maya can be completely autonomous. We can do outbound prospecting and inbound engagement with this bot, as well as help it pass signals back and forth to the systems that need to react to them. So another way that we use this is high intent cold accounts are not pursued by human SDRs, right? So let's imagine a scenario where that account and that buying group, they're targeted, they come to the website, they don't convert, but you want to follow up. You're using a reverse IP lookup and you want to put an SDR on a list of accounts, right? Well, not all of those accounts should receive a human SDR's time and attention. A lot of the intelligence that we see today can be used to automatically generate a relevant one-to-one email in real time using the signals that you're seeing from other channels. So in this case, we're seeing TechFlow. Yes, it has high engagement, but it's a cold account. It's not, it doesn't have really much intent in this case, but it's clicked through a lot of engagement. We're going to actually have the AI SDR follow up with that person in a much very relevant message you can see here, but they're not ready yet for the next stage in your buyer ABM lifecycle. But if you have another account in this program, they're in a different segment, they're going to be treated a slightly different way. The SDRs are going to be alerted in real time to a qualified buying signal, whether it's a first party interaction or a third party interaction. It doesn't matter to the rep. You want to tell them in a very simple way, spend time here. And here's why. And here's what to say. And this is an example of when they click into OmniStrat, they'll see why they're there, why they're engaged, what the history is, and who the account is. This also can be injected into a one-to-one cadence with automated call scripts to make sure that this signal is actually tailored in their sales engagements as well. And so in this case, AI is actually helping to suggest which accounts to focus on as well as what messages to use. It's still not enough to give great intelligence to salespeople and hope that they do exactly what you ask them to. SDRs can qualify net new, previously unknown buyers, but anytime you're routing leads to anybody, the number one thing that we're hearing from these ABX platforms and these ABX solutions is they need to provide intelligence and they need to provide context. So when Art Vandelay from OmniStrat goes into CRM or sales engagement, you need to provide those buyer signals in real time or as relevantly as in a more as relevant way as possible. Because I've seen marketing do a great job and sales teams think they know better. And they don't call Art because they aren't able to see the context for why Art is such a great person to spend time on. So we've got to highlight those things for the seller. We've got to use AI to suggest things that they should pay attention to. Because salespeople are coin operated and they will focus on what they want to focus on unless you make it easy and you make it intelligent. And two clients that got this right with us, Fujitsu is one. Fujitsu, they're targeting Fortune 100 greenfield accounts they're targeting Toyota, very large accounts with very many buying groups. We built a digital sales function that really focuses on the buyer persona, the buyer group, and the intent. So there's 5 or 6 different ways that we can engage with one account based on the segmentation model. We also have a very targeted account-based sequences that are driving to the Content Hub. Our teams are monitoring those. They're engaged. They're recycling folks back into other forms of engagement if they're not ready. And this has $13 million in pipeline. There's great penetration rate against these previously unknown greenfield accounts. There are 2 Fortune 10 accounts that were opened up as a result of this campaign and this effort, and they're continuing to see results today. Another is Blue Yonder. Blue Yonder did a great job of really focusing in on key buying groups and key intent signals that would then drive which accounts get calls, which accounts get emails, where we use advertising. Those sequences are culminating in a telequalification call with our team. We're continuing to shepherd that account buying group down the funnel. And in this particular case, we're seeing almost a 10% BQL, which means it's not an MQL. It's one step further than an MQL. We've seen a marketing interest or a potential form filler lead, and we've gotten on the phone, spoken to that person, qualified sales potential, and set up a meeting for the sales team to sell to that account. So these are creating sales-ready opportunities. That's the key thing. If ABM creates more leads that are suspect for sales, we're not necessarily doing ABX. We're creating more leads. We're not creating more sales outcomes. And I think for us, the definition of getting ABX right and buying group engagement right is, can we drive more sales outcomes from this go-to-market idea? And if the answer is yes, then we're focusing on the right things. things. If we're focusing on ABM as a way to drive more people to a landing page, I would argue that that's just B2B marketing, digital B2B marketing. We're all account based, right? So shifting from account based to buyer group and signal led is, I think, where we need to go as professionals. And we're seeing the results really, really back that up. But it's one of the biggest anxieties that we always hear is this is all fine. I own just a piece of that. Or we're not there yet. Or our data is not that mature. Kat, how do we get started? Like, how does somebody sitting and listening and seeing this, what are the steps that we would recommend they take away to get started on this kind of an effort?
Sure. So what we have done is we've put together 5 fundamental questions, right? So we've identified the challenges, the data disconnect that we discussed, the random acts of marketing, the outdated nurtures. You're probably thinking, as Mike said, this sounds great, but where do I go from here? So this is exactly what we're going to tackle right now. So before you dive into the AI-powered ABM strategy, you need to get crystal clear on these 5 fundamental questions. And from our perspective, these aren't just nice to have, they're the foundation that will determine your program success. So let's start with the first question. Do I have a key target account list in partnership with sales leaders? So the key point to note here is that we're using in partnership with sales leaders, not created by marketing and handed to sales or vice versa, right? So your target account list needs to be a collaborative effort. Sales knows which accounts are actually winnable, which have budget, and which have existing relationships. So before you move forward, schedule that alignment meeting between sales and marketing. This conversation is pretty much non-negotiable. Then the second question, what is my objective? Is it acquisition, retention, or customer cross upsell? So your objective determines everything from messaging to channels to success metrics and your budget allocation. So again, very, very important to have a clear objective when you start. Question number 3, what is my average deal size within each segment of accounts? So this question determines how much you can afford to invest per account and which channels make economic sense. If your average deal size is, for example, 50K, you can't justify the same level of personalization and investment as someone with 500K deals. However, this doesn't mean that smaller deals can do ABX. It just means that you need to be smarter about the automation and the scalable personalization. Then question number 4, do we have the marketing infrastructure in place to deliver? So we spoke a lot about tools and silos and just making sure that everything is integrated. So here's the thing, ABX, as Mike said before, isn't just a strategy, it's an operational commitment, and it needs to happen across the globe. You need the right stack, the right data, and the right processes. So here's where the data disconnect that we discussed earlier becomes critical. You can't deliver personalized, coordinated experiences if your systems don't talk to each other. Now, there's another point to this as well, right? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You don't need to have the perfect stack to get started, but you do need to have the basics or the foundation, the unified data, the coordinated messaging, and measurement capabilities. And then the last question, always important, budget, right? What budget is available for a pilot versus long-term program? So again, you need to be realistic about pilot budgets, but also think strategically about the long-term investment and what that means for you and your organization. So to summarize, right, once you can confidently answer these 5 questions, you're ready to move from the planning stage to the execution stage. And that's where the real magic happens, when you start orchestrating the AI-powered experiences that make your prospects feel like you truly understand their business. And that's the most powerful thing, that the trust, the understanding, the you know me, so I trust to invest in you or I trust to buy from you.
100%. So when we started this conversation, we're talking about faster sales cycles, more pipeline. Faster sales cycles because you're hitting them at the right time and you're removing friction to transact, you're removing confusion. More pipeline because we're hitting the right accounts instead of wasting media or effort or sales calories on the wrong accounts, and hitting more pipeline in the buying segments that really matter, actually flipping the funnel around to get that right. The other that Kat just mentioned that I want to highlight is really important, which is retention and trust. When you give a fantastic buying experience on the buyer's terms, they're going to talk about it. They're going to tell their friends. That is more, that's not just retention benefit and loyalty benefit, but you're getting customer share, you're kind of getting customer referrals, you're getting voice of the customer for free out in the market potentially. And that's another thing to think about. Once you have this right, now you can build in some really cool things for customers to share stories and highlight how great the buying experience is, having become a new customer recently. So I think there's another angle there too. It's not just faster sales cycles, more pipeline, it's happier customers who are more willing to recommend, which is critical in a market where you only get one or two bites at the apple every month.
Exactly.
And so
Word
with
of
that,
mouth. We learned
yeah,
about this like years and
yes,
years ago, and it's been around forever.
totally. I mean, that's nothing new, right? Word of mouth is that's the original
Exactly.
marketer. But but I think this buying experience allows you to have buyers more likely to share that they understood me, they were relevant, I didn't have 15 discovery calls, I didn't have to repeat myself on two different channels. They understood my needs, and I think if a buyer can say that about your brand, we're doing a lot right.
Exactly. Exactly.
So with that, I'll turn it over to the audience, see if there's any questions, and open it up for Q&A. We've got about 3 minutes left before, or I'd say, yeah, before the top of the hour. Are there any questions in the chat, or does anybody want to come off mute and ask a question? We'll leave it open for a few minutes and see what's out there.
And in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you to our lovely colleague Gifford for helping us set up the webinar and being basically the man behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gifford. It doesn't look like there's any questions in the chat, but one thing I would encourage all of you to do, this is a series. We're going to host monthly conversations about new concepts, themes, ideas, best practices. It could be as tactical as show me 5 examples of how to build an AI-powered nurture program. It could be as strategic as, do I need a marketing automation platform anymore with all these agents? Let us know what you want us to talk about and what themes and ideas you have, because we want to hear from our customers, we want to hear from our prospects, we want to talk about the things that are important to them. And we would be happy not only to post these kinds of this content, but we are absolutely going to post the recording of this webinar on our website. We would be very, very appreciative if the team listening could share with your colleagues, forward along the recording and say, listen to this, take a look at it. So we'll have that available for you all on our website shortly. And we'll do more of these. This is the first of many. So would love to hear from you on topics and themes that you want to hear about from Market One. And we'll put together the right content for all of you. So a big thank you. And we want to hear from you on new ideas, and look out for a recording from us and a follow-up to see this webinar on demand at any point.
Definitely. And also let us know if you'd like to be part of our webinar, right? Because we'll also have different panelists joining webinars. So if this is of interest, of course, let us know.
Yeah, we want to hear success stories, right? If you're doing something
Yeah.
innovative and great, we'd love to have a conversation and share what's working, what's not, what you've learned, what we can take away as a partner. Bring those ideas to us, and let's have more conversations about how we can convert better. Thanks for the time. Thanks for being here, and we look forward to partnering with you now and in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.